what you don't want to do is to lose and muddle the message by having something violent occur, like burning of cars and smashing of windows and looting. This detracts from the overall message.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Doctor of Disaster. I have a special guest with me today, my very good friend, colleague, mother from another brother, Dr. Michael Brown. Mike, how are you today?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. It's good to be here. It's good to see you. I can't wait to see you, to get you to sign that new book you've got. It's remarkable. In fact, a couple of my students have already asked about the book. I told them it's a must-have, and they are they run emergency operations centers, so they're salivating for it. They're salivating. So,
well, I didn't intend to talk about the book, but I've got a couple of EOCs, emergency operations centers, that are actually using the book to help them plan and to expand ICS as they need to. And they said they'd been lost without it.
Yeah, it's remarkable. So again, kudos, and make sure I got to get that puppy endorsed.
Oh, that's not a problem.
Roger that.
Let's get to the situation that we're going to discuss today. And for my viewers, I will tell you up front that Mike and I are very much alike. Dr. Brown and I both call it the way it is. We're very opinionated, and 99.9% of the time we can back it up with references. So, Dr. Brown, let's talk about the riots that we've seen in Dallas and New York and Minneapolis and Houston and Las Vegas and Atlanta, which, by the way, you're from Atlanta. And what is going on and what should be done?
I mean, how many hours do we have? I mean, it's I've heard a couple of people. I listened to a couple of rappers we have here in Atlanta, Killer Mike and T.I. They spoke on behalf of Atlanta last night. We had our mayor. She came out and she did a wonderful job. And she addressed the issues very eloquently. But I was very, very impressed with Killer Mike. I'd never heard this gentleman before, but he said some very poignant things. What's happening? And one of the things that he stated was, you don't burn your own house down. You don't burn your own house down. He mentioned Ted Turner and the CNN, what he had done for CNN by bringing it to Atlanta here, not in New York, Atlanta. He mentioned Martin Luther King, the patriarch of peaceful gatherings. And he mentioned him in such a way. I beg your pardon?
Peaceful protests.
Yes. And I'm looking at this, and I saw this in Ferguson. You and I had talked about this when Ferguson occurred. We scratched our heads because we're going, okay, there are grievances. You and I have had this talk. Yes, there are some fractures and fissures in our infrastructure. Implicit bias, racism. and now it's come to the head. But it's cyclical. It's continuing to happen. Every year there's something or 2 or 3 things that happen, but this has been happening for years. So you have a grievance and you go for it and you want to protest. But what you don't want to do is to lose and muddle the message by having something violent occur, like burning of cars and smashing of windows and looting. This detracts from the overall message. And for those individuals that do not have a problem with civil unrest and disobedience because they're saying, see, that's how they are, this is what their buy-in is. And so these groups that are allowing these things to occur on their watch, because if you're calling the peaceful protest, it's your house. And if it's your house, you determine the rules. And before you go to the protest, make sure everybody that's gathering know the rules.
Yeah.
And they haven't done that. And
well, here's something I want to bring up.
Sure.
Police officers inherently are very good. There's a few bad apples that take authoritarianism to the max. They're about authority, while the vast majority of them are for helping people. And when, as an example, the African American community thinks that all cops are against them, okay, the same thing can be said when we look at it from the other direction and say, look at those African Americans tearing up everything. And
right.
And we've got to come to a consensus. We've got to have conversation.
Okay.
And go from there.
Okay, I'm going to bite you in your backside now. Okay, good. And it's a big backside. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but you're saying that most police officers and law enforcement are intrinsically, they want to do a good job. There's a few bad apples. And I would say and respond to you in this way. Even if that's true, if 75% of those good officers are allowing that 25% to do things that go against morality, ethics, and just good human nature, then they have relegated themselves to being bad. Case in point, you and I work on what? We work on if you write it, cite it, and use the evidence. Well, we're just going to anecdotally, let's look at this. 4 officers, 25% chance of each one doing the right or wrong thing.
Right.
We have 1 officer put his knee on the neck of an African-American man for in excess of 7 minutes and take his life. That's the 25%er. Right. The other 75%, those 3 other officers, why did they allow that to happen? That's why the African-American community have an issue with law enforcement.
I agree. And I fully believe that officers that are afraid of turning in other officers are part of the problem. I also believe that chiefs or sheriffs that see an officer that has 3 or more complaints against African Americans, against
right.
Hispanics, against
right.
anyone
right.
of one race,
right.
to start really doing an internal affairs investigation.
Well, Mark, you and I have talked about this too. Is it bad training? Is it culture? Or is it an improper leadership, fragmented leadership?
Or is it something that happened along the way?
Well, if this individual had 18 complaints and he's in his 19th year, this isn't something that just happened yesterday. And the question is, why did when I go into a position of authority, one of the things that I want to do is to get to know my people. Right. And one of the ways I get to know that is I want to review their personnel records.
Yep.
And when I see what you just said, that's a red flag for me. And if it happens one time on my watch, see, this is a culture. Right. This is a culture.
I agree.
And the thing is, but now, how do we solve it is the question. Now, I have a few ideas.